We can probably get started just walking through the basics, and you all have the PowerPoint printed in the stack in front of you, so we can kind of just start going through that. So because it's been a while since we've been together, so I'm so happy to see you all. Thanks again for signing the sign-in sheet. And, oh, thank you, Gwen. Okay, so we're here. I can't believe it, but it's already the 14th meeting that we've had together. So thank you all again for your intense commitment to this process. Tonight we're just gonna do our basic run-of-the-mill, agenda review. Then we're gonna get to the excitement. Megan and Emily are gonna fill us in on what's been happening since we met way back in March. And then we are going to, hopefully, fingers crossed, hear from Keith about what has been going on to the bridge design and get an update from him. And then if there are any public comments, we'll hear those. And then we'll talk about next steps. So that's kind of our agenda for today. Our housekeeping, in theory, we will have WebEx. And so people can join there. We'll also, in theory, have public input. So hopefully if anybody is listening on WebEx or YouTube eventually, comments can be sent in. We don't have anyone, I think, tonight, although we might, who provide comments, and so we'll have time for them at the end. Just as a reminder, it's been a while. If we need to evacuate, we're gonna go out these two doors, feel like a flight attendant, and we're just gonna cross to the parking lot. I think it's that one. And then, let me see, what are we doing? Oh yeah, meeting protocols. You all are great, so you don't, I don't have to remind you all, but you are fabulous about being curious, asking questions. We'll have lots of time to have you ask questions of Keith and Megan and Emily, so we have got enough time for that. We will, I'll keep you on time so we get out of here on time and you can all get home. Okay, and introductions and roll call. This is all of you. And again, thank you for being here. I know we've had a couple people who aren't here tonight, so we definitely will have the recording and everything posted on the website. And if there are any questions, we'll follow up. So I think we will move to Emily and Megan. But before we do that, are there any questions about the agenda? I can't answer any other questions. Okay. All right. Feel free to get up and get more pie if you need it. Okay. All right.
Awesome, thank you. Okay, hey everybody. I know it's been a while. In case you don't remember, I'm Emily Militich. I am the construction phase PM for Multnomah County. So today I'm just going to kind of run through kind of similar content that we had at our board meeting this week. If you happen to tune into that, this will be a little bit of a repeat. But I'm just kind of going over our updated range of costs, and then Megan will chat about kind of what our next steps forward are for the project. So as you know, in last fall, our design team put together their 30% design milestone package. Once we got that package, our contractor went hard at work at estimating, putting together a cost and a schedule based on that 30% package. We also had an independent cost estimating team that the county hired that also does an estimate. So what we get out of that is kind of a range of costs from kind of two different sources to make sure that we have a really good sense of what the cost is looking like. So once we got those cost estimate, we went through a really extensive risk assessment. So essentially, we got together a large swath of our team. We spent kind of a few months identifying all the various risks. We had somewhere on the range of 117 different risks that we identified. So that could be, design risks, permitting risks, construction risks. If you're digging in the ground and you run into an old tank that was buried. So all various different types of things that would cause the project cost to increase. And once we found all of those, then we went through and identified what's the likelihood of that risk coming to fruition and what would the cost of it be if we did experience it. So we did a pretty extensive assessment around risk, and then we moved into a value engineering session. If you go next slide, please. So really the purpose of the value engineering session was to get folks in the room who really aren't that familiar with the project, people who are purposely not on the project team. And we did kind of bring them up to speed and then had them really start thinking creatively about how could we, maintain our current kind of goals and constraints, and then but come up with creative ideas to save money on the project. So are there ways that we could build it more efficiently? Are there ways that we could design it more efficiently? Are there different materials that we could use that would help save costs, different construction approaches? So we came up with over 160 different ideas. So those range from anything from totally changing the bridge type to looking at different places where the piers and the foundations could go. And at the end of the day, after we kind of went through all those ideas, we landed on 24 different ideas that we actually thought were worth kind of doing a little bit more design work, analyzing, and then pricing out. We also kind of did an adjacent side study that was to look at if you kind of took off all the, major constraints and sideboards, could you build something that was, what's the very cheapest thing that you could build here? At the end of the day, after doing that exercise, we actually found that, what we're designing today is actually the least expensive. So I think that's a really awesome testament to our team to show that, they're doing the hard work to make sure that, considering all of our goals and objectives, what we have designed is kind of the best solution for this location. Next, please. So at the end of that process, we came up with about $160 million in savings. Those savings were primarily focused around the movable bridge. The movable bridge is by far the most expensive part, just from like a square foot point of view. So anything we could do to reduce the overall size of the movable bridge would result in pretty significant savings for the project. Next slide, please. So after all that was said and done, our new updated range of costs was 1.6 to 1.8 billion. So we know this is a pretty significant increase from the cost estimate that we had in 2022. It does include all of our project phases. It includes a pretty healthy contingency, which is appropriate and really industry standard for this level of design. It includes escalation to the midpoint of construction based on the schedule that we had at the time, and it incorporates that $160 million in value engineering savings. Next, please. So you might be wondering why the increase in costs. So I think there's, everyone has experienced inflation since COVID, and over the last few years, the thing about construction costs is those costs are actually increasing at a rate that is higher than all of our basic commodities. So asphalt that you would use in a different industry than construction is actually less expensive than asphalt in the construction industry. And kind of that's true across the board on construction materials. There's a variety of reasons for that, but at the end of the day, what that means is that when we need to go out and get concrete and steel, those material costs are 20 to 40% more expensive than they were in 2022. So that's a really significant part of the cost increases. at the time that we did the estimate, there was also significant competition locally. We have a lot of major infrastructure happening in this region, and so just the competition for subcontractors, for labor, all increases the price for the work. And then there's a variety of, uncertainties. So there's uncertainties around tariffs. There's uncertainty around funding possibilities. There's an uncertainty around which projects will go forward and will not go forward. So all of that really lends itself to increasing costs. And then we have some, kind of standard increases around just as you develop, more detail in the design, you discover more impacts. You might find that the place that you thought at a concept level that you could put your foundations is actually in conflict with a lot of utilities that we've now done the work to find and locate, and realize that, that increases the cost as well. So kind of your more basic scope growth as you get into more detailed design. Next slide, please. And with that, I will pass it over to Megan. Unless you want to do any questions now about costs.
Sorry. Technical difficulties. Okay. Yes, Gabe.
So we spent a whole lot of time kind of honing it down to that under $1 billion mark initially. How much is the value added really, does the value added really need to be there? Does the number matter anymore? I mean, we designed a bridge to certain specs with the size of the piers, with the size of the movable span. We don't really need to walk it back, do we?
You mean on the value engineering?
Yeah, trying to get the feds to go along with it. You just put out your plan and it either goes or it doesn't. We're building a certain thing here, so I feel like this shaving things off just to shave things off.
Yeah, I would.
Maybe isn't that much value.
So I would say that the value engineering was maybe less about kind of reducing the value of the project and more about looking at ways that you could build the project with all of the same kind of general wants and desires that this group has expressed, that the community has expressed, that our leaders have expressed, but doing it in a way that costs less money. So for example, and Keith will run through kind of all of the images so that you guys don't have to listen to me speak. You can see kind of what the results of those were. But things like we slightly moved the water piers closer together. And what that does is it reduces the total span of the movable bridge, the total length, which is the most expensive. So just in making that slight tweak inward, it saves the project money. And so it might not have a major aesthetic impact, but it saves money.
Or does it have an impact on future navigability?
Nope, it doesn't.
Okay.
Yeah, and Keith
And
will walk through that stuff, yeah.
The balance.
Yeah, so we made sure to, we maintained all of the various constraints, permitting requirements, regulatory requirements. We did not swap out like the inverted Y or things like that. So we tried to maintain all of the kind of core important values and aesthetics that we had to date.
Any other questions for Emily? Okay. Well, then I guess we'll hear from Megan, and then we can move on to Keith. And I think Keith is up and good. Okay. Let us know if you can't hear us or anything, Keith.
All right, thank you, Emily, for kind of sharing how we arrived at our updated costs. So now I'll kind of take you through, well, what's next? And so having heard the updated costs, I'll just walk you through how much money we have found for the project to date. So at a high level, through our vehicle registration fee and the opportunity to take advantage of a TIFIA loan specifically for transportation projects, at the federal level, we were able to come up with a financing package of $740 million. And that's a combination of funds we have accumulated to date. So that's our savings from the VRF that we have already collected and set aside for the design phase, which is $58 million, some of which we've already spent. And then the $10 million from Metro via a regional flex fund grant that I think a lot of folks here helped support the project in receiving. We recently received that. Then also, with much appreciation from this group as well, back in 2023, we were able to secure a lottery bond grant in the amount of $20 million. And then finally, I have a $7 million in miscellaneous federal grants and appropriations that we've received, so that totals $95 million. And then based on our future revenue projections of the VRF and with the really nice loan terms on this TIFIA loan, we feel like we could get another $645 million dedicated to the project. So that's how we are arriving at 740. But on the next slide, you see, unfortunately, that leaves us still with an up to $1 billion gap. You want to move to the next slide? I will say we do have a USDOT Bridge Investment Program grant still outstanding, but just based on our current assessment of the federal climate, we really have a low level of confidence of receiving that grant. That's something we've been applying for several years now in the amount of $447 million. So we're pretty certain our gap is going to stand at up to $1 billion based on our current estimated completion date of fall 2033. And unfortunately, every year that the project is delayed, that number will go up just due to, as Emily spoke about, escalation and inflation. So because of this large gap and what we're seeing at the federal level, we really don't have a construction timeline at this time. We will continue to progress the project to ensure that it's construction ready, such that when the federal climate does change, that we are ready to go to take advantage of any funding opportunities that may arise and pick the project back up without having lost a lot of efficiency. And then on the next slide, just to kind of explain, well, what does that mean to be construction ready? So this fiscal year, which is July of this year to June of the next year, we will advance the design to 60%. You may recall, and as Emily mentioned, we received a 30% package not too long ago. We've been pricing and estimating based on that package, so we'll hit the 60% milestone. We're targeting May of next year. We will prepare and submit all permits with a really long shelf life, like the Coast Guard permit, some of our land use applications with the city that we've worked really hard on. We'll go ahead and submit those. And anything else will just kind of get to be into a ready to submit state, so get it to a final draft form. And then we'll do a lot of work to document all key decisions to date and agency and stakeholder agreements, since we've been working very hard with our partners at the city and TriMet about how they'd like this bridge to integrate into their systems. We'd like to make sure that we memorialize that work, so when we do pick it back up, we don't revisit those decisions. And then we'll move into the following year, which is, July of 26 to then June of 27. We will prepare a pickup plan. So pretty much addressing all the outstanding decisions or issues that we've left open as we've kind of where we left the project, so people understand what to jump on right away and continue the project moving forward. We will also develop an updated cost estimate based on that 60% package and the same really rigorous and thorough process that Emily mentioned previously that we applied to the 30% package. And then we'll continue to keep our eye out for funding opportunities. There's a transportation reauthorization bill that's due in Congress here, I think, in 27. There's also the 2027 state legislative session. If you are tracking how the transportation bill went in this session, you know, it's sort of a Band-Aid fix for transportation right now, so perhaps in 27, there'll be some political will to kind of revisit transportation's needs and look at passing an additional bill. So we'll be tracking those opportunities. And then, of course, as administrations change, we will be tracking any new grant programs that maybe will continue from the IIJA package that was previously passed. So we feel like taking the project to 60% is really the right step and no further. We're estimating it would take about 2 years to complete the right-of-way process to get to construction, and that's about the same time it would require us to take the project from 60 to 100. So we feel like 60% is a really nice sweet spot to take the project to, especially since a lot of the additional work between 60 and 90 is really specific to the contractor who's going to build the project. So we wouldn't possibly have to redo that work if we took it that far and then restarted later. And then on the next slide, I just wanted to highlight a couple things of our work plan that this group would specifically be interested in. So all of the aesthetic design decisions that we've made to date will be documented in our plan set. We are not planning to advance the project any further from an aesthetic point of view than what you'll see here today. Anything that's maybe still left to be decided, we'll just put in an assumption in the plan set for pricing purposes, but note in our pickup plan that we would need to go and revisit those areas and work through the aesthetic decisions there. We are going to update our lighting concept. If you recall, we had internal glow and lines of light that we were considering several meetings back. Now, based on the new shape of the bridge, we will go ahead and update the lighting concept and present it at the next meeting. We will pause work on any of the urban design details that we had discussed at previous meetings. If you recall, Mayor Reed was working a lot on the abutment, how to take advantage of the abutment space for either bridge salvage work or art. Any details in Waterfront Park, we would pause that as well. And then also the connection from the bridge to the East Bank Esplanade. We've been working very hard with the city and our consultants over many years to find a suitable solution. We'll go ahead and pause that work and just share with key stakeholders and interest groups just kind of summarize the work we've done to date. And then once the project resumes, we would reconvene this group and complete any of the outstanding work to get the project to completion. On the next slide, this does mean that we are anticipating that our next meeting on November 20th will be our last meeting until the project picks back up. Our tentative agenda for that meeting is to, as I mentioned, we'll share updated lighting concepts. We'll have HLB come back and talk through some of their new ideas and get some feedback. Well, if we don't get through everything today that Keith was planning to share with you, we have that November meeting to continue any topics that have overflow. We also want to share with you, we are planning to have a centennial celebration of the bridge next June because the bridge turns 100 years old next year. We really want to help create a community celebration of this important, long-standing bridge in our community. We'll also kind of do some final thoughts, roundtable comments, closing remarks, perhaps focusing on what you would like the future CDAG group to consider if and when the project gets picked back up. And then we'll also have an appreciation party with some cake and some special guests, just really say thank you for all the extensive, long hours and hard work that you have volunteered as being a member of the committee. So that is the plan moving forward.
Yeah, so I saw lots of you turn up your tents. So I saw Bob, then Patty, then Anthony, then Neil. So go ahead, Bob.
Checking my cup, I see that it is half full. And my comments are going to reflect that same approach. Sometimes in big projects like this, you want to sort of push the schedule and you want to get, in the ground and you want to start digging and making dirt fly, or real estate acquisitions, other stuff. And you advance a project far enough that you have some confidence that you're heading in the right direction. What I see this as being, and so I'm asking this as a question, it sounds more like a statement, but what I think I'm hearing is that you're approaching the project because of the uncertainty. What can you advance to get to certainty on things that you can control? So the engineering, the making those adjustments, making some material decisions, again, with the fluctuation in pricing and the politics of everything else. I also hear you wanting to have as certain complete package to reduce risk. So it's not just an academic exercise that you're doing. It's, I think, the way I'm hearing this is to clarify as much as possible in the time that you've got and the funding that you've got. So when the planets align again and things are ready to go, you'd have greater clarity, greater certainty, certainly at a local level. We can't control things, outside of here. Is that a fair assessment?
I would say the biggest risk the county sees is making big moves that would impact the community without having all the funding identified. So to move forward right now, if we had all the funds, we would go ahead and procure right-of-way. So that means relocating really important businesses in the community, demolishing buildings. And so to make those large moves without having the full funding identified, we feel like that's not the best steward of public funds. So we're proceeding with caution, just because as an agency, that's how we would like to approach the way we construct infrastructure. I think other agencies have larger couch cushions and can find money in other places and kind of take larger, riskier moves. But as a county, this is the largest infrastructure project that we would ever attempt, and so we want to make sure we do it right and do right by the community as we do it. So I think the risk is ensuring we continue to hold the public's trust as we move forward with this really large, important project.
And then Megan, I think another part of Bob's question was what can be advanced that the county can control?
So I think some of the work that we can do is, we're potentially looking at if we can use some of our metro funds to do some of the work that we were going to do in advance of the bridge closure to get our detour routes kind of in the best shape as we possibly can. So that's one small piece that we're exploring that we do have funding for. Outside of that, there's not a lot of construction work that we can do because really, the first big thing that you do for a bridge replacement on the same alignment is demo the existing bridge. So we definitely wouldn't want to do that and then be in a position where we don't have the funds to build back our beautiful new bridge. So it's really, the work over the next year to 18 months is really focused in on getting the design as close as possible to kind of a construction-ready place where we have a lot of certainty around the risks and around what the schedule could look like, and around the costs, which just puts the county, I think, in a really great position to pursue funding in the future if it seems like our federal government wants to help be partners again.
Okay, great, thank you. So I have Patty, Anthony, Neil, and Jason.
Thank you. I asked at the last meeting that staff find out for what reasons Parks and PBOT reportedly asked for no pedestrian access on either the east side or the west side. And I wonder what answers you got.
Well, we are still, both agencies are committed to access on the east side from the bridge to the Esplanade. The connection, so that's a joint decision by the county and the city. On the west side, the decision to remove the staircases at First Avenue was a county decision, and I believe, as we mentioned previously, it's due to the kind of the change of use of the TriMet station down below and the constraints of building a ramp in that area to replace the staircase, given the tight space allocation that's available. We feel like it's the best use of funds just to have folks go around the block from that location to First Avenue, and we'll be improving that route and addressing any sidewalk deficiencies to make that a smooth and comfortable route for ADA users.
But that doesn't address the question that was asked, which is why can't we have access directly from the bridge deck into Waterfront Park?
Oh, yeah. We did explore that connection option during the environmental review phase, and again, similar kind of answer with the First Avenue. That space is largely already allocated to either the Japanese American Museum of Oregon Plaza or the plinth and fountain area that's used for Saturday Market. And given the elevation difference, the kind of footprint required for a ramp to get down to that level just takes up a huge amount of space that Parks just doesn't feel like doesn't feel like displacing the uses of the current space in the park.
Well, respect, I'm sorry, that is simply not acceptable. I've worked on access to bridges elsewhere in Denver, various places across the country. They don't take up that much space. They can be put behind, for example, the central column, which would be moved, comes down next to a little wall on the south side. The space immediately on the north side is clear of the Japanese garden. We're talking about something close to the bridge. I still maintain that it is absolutely unacceptable in Portland, of all places, to spend $1.5 billion on a bridge and tell people they've got to walk an extra 1,000 feet if they do the original plan all the way down and back, or if they're going to walk down a ramp which may replace the staircase for the TriMet station. The TriMet station has got nothing to do with what we're talking about. We're talking about access from the bridge to one of the major assets of the city, Waterfront Park. And without direct access to that, I think that we are just not doing our job. The bridge is not only for not only for vehicles. There's facility on the bridge deck for people walking as well as bicycles, and it's just not acceptable to abandon them at the end of the bridge and say, sorry, we're not going to do it. There have to be really solid, sound reasons for not doing it. The reason I raise it now is that any sort of access onto the bridge deck is going to affect the design of the bridge and will have structural implications. And so we need to decide now how that access is going to be arranged. We talked about this back in March, and the same is true on the East Side Esplanade. It's all very well to postpone the design of the vertical access, but how it connects into the bridge deck is one of the fundamental decisions that needs to be made now, certainly before we get to 60%. So I don't know how else to pursue this, but I have not heard a good reason for compromising pedestrians in this city well, I haven't heard the reason. It's just not acceptable.
Thanks, Patty.
Thank you.
Okay, I had Anthony next.
Yeah, so the last thing I was going to say,
Talking to that.
oh, sorry. The last thing I was going to say was, let's not forget about the access from the bridge to the banks on both sides, because it seems like it has been, and I'm pretty sure when we were talking about this before, there was a pretty good consensus that this was a missing piece. And if we've got to come up with another 860 million to $1 billion or whatever for sort of the reality check of the financial situation, then we should do this too. This should be a part of that as well. So earlier, you all were talking about the federal funding uncertainty, and that when that improved, and these are my words, when that improved to the point where maybe there was some certainty and it looked like we were going to be able to get the money in order to continue to move forward. And then there was another comment about state funding and, this transportation bill that's kind of a bandage right now, and maybe that uncertainty could improve to certainty at some point down the road as well. I have two questions about that. One is, do we have any idea of how much money we might be able to get from this potential change of uncertainty to certainty in both state and federal funding, and how that impacts the 860 to billion additional costs? And then the second question is, and so what if we don't get that? Because a lot of people would say, just because there's midterms next year and there might be an opportunity to change one of the houses or whatever as far as the, political leanings, that doesn't mean like this kind of stuff is gonna like automatically get approved and change and whatever, because, it's still gonna be the same president, same administration, same secretaries and all, the major federal agencies. And so I think besides doing the reality check that we're doing now, I think we also need to do sort of a reality check about the future, because we're probably not talking about months that there might be a change from uncertainty to certainty. We're talking years. And it's already been said here that the costs are going to escalate the longer that it's going to take. That has to be factored in here. And I think if it is, which it eventually will have to be, then let's not forget about that access from the bridge to the ground on both sides of the river.
Yeah, great, thank you, Anthony. So I heard, do we have any idea of the funds available from the state or feds? And what if we don't get the funds?
We don't have a sense of any dollar figures that may be available, and I think our plan is, if we don't get the funds, is to be as ready as possible should funds become available. It's just kind of the reality of the situation that we're in.
Keep hope alive and we hurry up and wait.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so I saw Neil, Jason, and Susan. And then I think we will head over to Keith across the pond.
Okay. First of all, I agree with what Patty said 100%. You have to have pedestrian access, otherwise we're not Portland anymore. A couple of comments. First, I don't think we should spend an awful lot of money on this until we get most of the funding in place. I mean, we all remember what happened with the Columbia River crossing. It's my understanding the state spent about $260 million and not one shovel full of dirt was moved. Let's not be in that position. Let's get things pretty much dialed in first. But my question was, bullet point on fiscal 27, continue to pursue funding opportunities. Do you have a for instance?
I think it's kind of what we've been talking about is the 2027 state legislative session and then the transportation reauthorization bill in Congress, also in 2027. And then continuation of certain grant programs that were stood up in the IIJA package, tracking if those grant programs are going to continue on after IIJ expires, which is this fiscal year.
Okay, my comment on that would be, have we looked at private funding? Do you think too many people in Portland would have a big issue calling it the Nike Burnside Bridge or the Amazon private corporations name huge coliseums all the time. The naming rights are a big deal. I mean, Amazon Burnside Bridge, but even maybe the Tesla Burnside Bridge. Well, think about it. I mean, it sounds kind of silly, but on the other hand, has that even been pursued? Bring in the private sector and put a plaque up to Phil Knight.
No, we haven't received direction from our chair to head in that direction. Yeah.
I still think it's a good idea.
Yeah.
Just a thought.
Yeah, thanks.
Thanks, Neil.
It could be a Band-Aid until the funding comes in from the, like manna from heaven, you know?
All right. Jason, and then Susan and Jackie.
So you said this will be the biggest project that the county has done, infrastructure project?
Yeah.
What would be most equivalent, if we're looking back historically, in terms of size of project and investment level that we could compare this project to, would be one thing?
At the county, or, yeah, the Selwood Bridge replacement project.
Okay. And what was the budget for that particular project?
I think that came in at 320 million, and that's, let's see, that project began in 2003, and the bridge opened in 2015. And just as a comparison, it's a 2-lane bridge versus our 4-lane bridge. It's a fixed bridge versus our movable bridge. It's also a bit kind of in a neighborhood setting versus our in a very dense urban setting. And I think our bridge is also a lot longer because it extends farther into the city than the Selwood Bridge. So, but that is the closest comparison project that I could think of right now.
And for that project, how much was secured that, you know, like when you looked at your breakdown that you looked at for the 1.8 million for this, how much of that was secured in advance? Where does the confidence level become? I mean, when we look at a $1 billion gap, as you would look at opportunities and would secure money, where do we feel the confidence level gets enough to actually put a stake in the ground in terms of an actual start? Given the fact that this is so much larger project than anything that the county's ever done before.
I feel like internally, we've really looked at a 2/3 kind of threshold as where we would feel more confident to move forward into making those big moves. I talked about like a right-of-way purchase, construction and TP. So that's kind of the gut feel that we've had so far.
Thanks.
Yeah, thank you. All right, Susan.
So a couple of things. First of all, I'm totally in the Patty wagon with Patty about the access to Waterfront Park. I mean, those stairs I just took the stairs the other day down off of Burnside, and I was thinking about it then. I thought, well, they're going to get rid of these stairs, and then we're going to have to walk all the way around to, 2nd or 3rd Avenue? I mean, it's just nuts. It doesn't make any sense. And it's just bad planning on the part of asking to build this multi-billion-dollar bridge now and not have pedestrian access. It's ridiculous. So I'm completely on board with that. The The thing, I kind of take a look at this, one, I don't have a whole lot of hope for the legislature. I mean, the one big beautiful bill, one thing that it did is it really hurt the state in terms of its taxing ability. And as we know, the state is facing an $888 million shortfall, or which is going to balloon. We know that that is. And they're going to have to take care of people with reduced food stamps and Oregon Health Plan, all of that, Medicaid going down. So I don't really see that. One place that I think that money has been left on the table that I've mentioned before is that at least in all the neighborhoods I drive through, there are dozens and dozens of unregistered cars and cars that have expired tags that just sit there and drive around. There's no enforcement whatsoever. I mean, isolated enforcement, you know, maybe if you're downtown and you're at a meter or a parking kitty area, you might get a tag, but mostly you don't. So there's a whole lot of money just being left on the table, and it is something Multnomah County controls because you control corrections and you control the sheriff's department. I mean, you could simply be giving out more tickets for expired tags and get people registering their cars. So there's some money right there. Okay, the other thing that I want to bring up is that we've been working for years and years to build this bridge for this kind of one-day event or this 6-minute event. I don't see how we can just kind of kick back and go, okay, well, we can't do anything about it now, the political climate, and the political climate, from the looks of it, it's going to last for a while. The funding situation is going to last for a while, so we're just sort of putting it off. That earthquake could happen at any moment, right? It could happen at any moment. So what is the county doing or going to do in the interim, perhaps with the extra money that I'm suggesting you go from the unregistered cars, to have some kind of a contingency plan? We know the Tillicum Bridge, that the core of the Tillicum Bridge, we've been told, is earthquake ready. It's the supports. So are we looking at the possibility of trying to retrofit or rebuild the support so that we have something in place, since this bridge, this event could happen at any moment? And instead we're talking about, you know, putting it off until 2020, 33 or 35 or whenever I'm long dead. And then this is going to happen, you know, for 6 minutes, and yet we haven't built the bridge yet. In the meantime, what are we doing to prepare for the fact that the earthquake could happen in 10 minutes from now? Thanks.
Yeah. Thanks, Susan.
Well, to your first question about collections, PBOT is the traffic enforcement and writes the tickets, and I think we've had conversations with PBOT about funding positions in their program to help target unregistered vehicles, because we agree, you know, that is a problem. And then secondly, to your point about what else can we do to prepare for the big one, I think right now we have an opportunity to maybe look at investments in other bridges in terms of seismic retrofits with some potential funds that maybe were set aside for this project to help our region prepare. Of course, that doesn't create a lifeline route, resilient bridge like this does, but it's something that could help with life safety in the event of an earthquake. And then we have the Selwood Bridge, which is resilient from end to end, just not located in downtown. But we're doing what we can with what we have, given this, you know, we're still very committed to the goal of supporting resiliency in our region, and we're just doing the best with what we have at the time.
Okay, Jackie, and then Gabe, you just got it in under the wire. So, okay, and then we'll move on to Keith, okay?
All right. I was just curious if we have an accounting of what.
To the microphone?
Oh, I don't know. Can you maybe just point it down? Okay.
Is there an accounting of what funds we've spent to this point? Because I know Sharon and Ed and Gabe and Susan and I have been doing this for years at this point, but I don't know that I've ever seen an accounting. I've seen like a projection of how much we think the costs are, but I'd love to see an accounting to this point, and also how that money what we've done with that money will be preserved for the future, because if we're going to, like, we've spent money on an architect, on many professionals doing different work, on county staff, on, meals, like all these different things we've spent money on to do this work, move this work forward. And if it's going to stall, I would hate to see that money be lost or those gains be lost. And for us to, I think sometimes we see things that lag, and then there's this recreation of the wheel, and we have to look it all over again, and we have to hire a new architect, and we have to do all these things. So I'm just curious, like, where's the accounting so that we can be accountable to our community for what funds we've spent, and also accountable to the gains that we've made and not lose them later when we pick up this project again.
Yeah, you're really speaking to a lot of the conversations we've been having internally when it comes to what makes this project construction ready. We want to be as ready as possible without wasting money. And that's where we landed on a 60% package, because any additional funds that you may spend advancing the project beyond 60 could be throwaway once you pick back up. So in addition, we're also making sure our contracts are extended out till 2031, such that if we do find a source of funds, that we still have the team on board that we can just pick up and go immediately. And then also, I think that's the energy that we'll be putting into our documentation decisions to date in our pickup plan, to ensure that there isn't a lot of knowledge transfer or remembering what we did X many years ago. It will all be written down so people have a roadmap to start from, to try to minimize that reinventing the wheel phase that you talked about.
But the accounting, like, I know you guys must have an accounting, I would assume.
Oh, how much have you
So
spent to date?
can be shared with us at the next meeting?
I can share it with you now. I think to date on the design phase, we've spent $46 million approximately. And then during if you combine the NEPA phase and the feasibility study phase, which many of you have been here from the start, that work was $33 million. And so just as a comparison, I think if you look at the Interstate Bridge project, I think in the original Columbia River Crossing project, like it was mentioned before, I think they spent over $200 million in their environmental review phase. So while our numbers sound like a lot, it is relative to some other projects. It's, it could be small in comparison, but those are the amount of dollars we've spent to date.
To get to that 60%, what do you project that will be?
Let's see, I think we're still fine-tuning some numbers, but I think it could be in the range of, I want to say, 35 million, 35 to 40 million.
In addition to the 76?
In addition to the 46, yeah.
40, I thought 76.
Oh, 46 plus 33, and then we think maybe another 25 to 30.
Okay, great. Gabe?
Just real quick, there's
33, 46, 25 to 30.
There's some work being done on one of the other bridges now, isn't there? A new project? Is there a pivot to kind of doubly shore up that project? Solve the problem of having something that would outlast the earthquake for an interim?
I think you're speaking about the Broadway Bridge deck rehab project that's happening right now. There are no seismic scopes of work for that project.
And what about the scope of like the 205 bridge replacement that was, the lower part?
Abernathy onto
West Lynn area?
Yeah, that project is making that bridge seismically resilient.
So we do have a couple of, they're long workarounds.
Yeah, I mean, ODOT has identified the 205 corridor as a resilient corridor rather than the I-5 corridor through downtown. So they're making targeted investments along 205 to try to bring the bridges and overcrossings up to current seismic code. I think the rationale there is that it leads to a newer bridge into Washington, the 205 bridge. So it makes sense to invest in that corridor for right now.
Okay, big feelings. Thank you, Megan.
Okay.
And I think Eric is on the line and is on WebEx, not on the line. But Eric, just let us know if you have any comments or questions. You should be able to raise your hand or send a chat, and we'll keep an eye on that. Okay, Keith, we're going to move it over to you. Hopefully you can hear us and can also speak. Are you there? Oh, we see you. Oh, you're on mute?
Yeah, I was on mute, but I've now been released.
We can, yay, okay.
My captor has released me. Good evening, everybody, or good morning in my case.
So you have a microphone.
We might just could we turn up the volume a little bit? Okay.
All right, testing. Is
Yes,
this
that's
good?
better, thank you.
All right. My understanding, Paul, is that I'm sharing from my side, right?
Yes.
Okay, fine. Okay, I'm going to jump straight in and share that.
And you all have this.
You can see this?
Yes.
Okay. Well, how long have I got? 30 minutes? 40, perhaps?
Yeah.
Okay. There's a lot of information. I'm going to jump straight in. I mean, we've come a long way certainly since my organisation started on this. You've come a long way. You've come further together. So the value engineering process has changed a little bit, but just to kind of give you the punchline before I give you the content, just to say that you will still recognise the bridge that we have debated over the last years and months, but there are changes. I want to run through them comprehensively, but not in so much detail. It's a little overwhelming, so I'm going to give you the headlines with a lot of images, and if you think I'm going a little fast, it's because there are so many of them. So I'm limiting. You've heard about the financial aspects of it. I'll tell you about the visual impacts of those financial decisions. It doesn't mean that I'm ignoring the technical issues, but we can speak to some of those technical issues if there are questions. But I want to tell you what is different now than the last time we met. This is a curious slide insofar as I have always argued against discussing this as three bridges. It's one bridge, but just for expedience in this case, I'm going to talk about those three elements separately and talk about the pineapple first. So the West Bridge, just to frame what the changes are. So the after is the value engineered version. The before is what we call that, and I believe that everything before you have seen, but it's possible that not. So the West Bridge, the chief takeaway is that we have moved some of the span arrangements around. So there's a column location in Waterfront Park that is moved, and the framing of the deck has changed. But you can see from this diagram, perhaps, that those changes are not, they're material, they're not serious, one might say. So just a couple of slides to show what those are. There's a longer span across NATO and Waterfront Park Saturday Market. And by virtue of what we've done in the river, it's a pretty much similar span out to the in-water pier. We've changed the column location and we've changed the column shaping. What that looks like beneath the bridge, the bridge is the same width, but by virtue of changing the framing a little bit and changing what's happening on the edge, you get a wider soffit. So there's a little bit more coverage over Saturday Market. And there is a change, I'll come back to this, but there's a change in the status of the in-water pier. And as I said, we've segued from a rectilinear column to a circular column. A little bit more on that later as well. So you'll see a lot of slides before and after, and only the cognoscenti would understand the difference in them, really. So, you know, if I get cut off or some such, it's going to be okay, right? It's the same. So I'll just go through these, and we can pull any of these back up afterwards. But, you know, you can see that they're not, you would only know the difference if you knew what there was before. Very little difference. I'll just point out again afterwards. So the distance between the edge of the deck and the first girder has changed a little bit, where there's less overhang now than there was previously, which is the kind of thing that keeps me awake, but, you know, only me, I suspect. View back looking west. And again, this is a discussion really about what the state of the in-water pier is, but value engineering is a kind of interesting process because it purports to add value, but actually it just reduces cost. But sometimes what rolls out of that process is something that's better architecturally than as well as cheaper. And I think in this case, I think there's something happening on the in-water pier which I think is of interest to the experience in and around the waterfront on the west side, which is really to do with the proximity and transparency of this in-water pier behind. Suddenly, instead of the blank wall that you had previously, you've got a permeable point of interest. Amongst the team, not from the architectural team, but by the wider team, there was kind of concern. There was a lot of hand-wringing about, well, you know, a circular column is not something you want, but, you know, should we maintain the shape? I mean, this is a sort of slightly flippant image, but what it really says is that surfaces, particularly surfaces in the urban realm, are really palettes. Sometimes they're palettes for graffiti, but they can also be palettes for art or kind of community asset. So we're not worried about that shaping. We're interested in the opportunity, something for later. And in fact, actually, you know, all of this is moot because really that's a populated space, largely. And, you know, the kind of animation of that space is about the people and the Saturday Market, not about the column shape or the framing of the bridge. So I don't know whether it's appropriate, but we have three bridges or three sections of bridge to discuss. I've put in a break to take any about them individually, but I can push on and do all three at once.
Let's pause just for technical questions, and I saw that Aaron had one. Or maybe it doesn't have to be technical, it's okay.
it's potentially technical or aesthetic. I'm wondering, with the redesign of the cantilevers, there's a, as I understand it, a shorter cantilever as you've moved the structural beams out, but it looks like the cantilever members themselves have gotten significantly wider or thicker, and I'm wondering, it would seem like it would be the opposite as that cantilever reduces its length, and I'm wondering if maybe I'm just seeing that wrong or if there's anything we should know there.
Yeah, it's you're eagle-eyed, Aaron. That's very astute. So, we don't have. This is not a BIM model. We don't have live changing to every decision. They were drawn wider, but I'm not certain that they are wider. It chimes with me that they should not be that way. I don't know currently, because we're creating imagery almost before technical detail has been done. So I would take these with a little pinch of salt.
Great, thank you. Okay, Keith, I think we can move on to the next section.
All right. I don't remember which fruit or vegetable it was in the middle, but it's the moving bridge has more significant visual changes than either of the other two parts. And this is where the money is being saved largely. So what's happening is that the two in-water piers, mostly, I mean, my favorite thing in value engineering is foundations, because it makes no difference to me, right? If you can save a ton of money in the ground, all good. And that kind of is what's happening here, is that we can't, for permitting reasons, we can't change the navigation envelope, but we can, by virtue of changing the geometry of those in-water piers, you can see that these now have a vertical inner face that allows us to, in effect, move the piers inwards towards the channel, and that makes a significant saving on what's happening in the foundation relative to the existing foundation in the ground. So those changes largely shape, position, span, ergo span length, and there's some changes that go with that in terms of the starlings and the operator houses. We have 2 operator houses, now we have 1. So the before is the image, the profile is the revised. Don't be alarmed, they're not going to be massive concrete blocks. I mean, that's, my that's architecture 101, that's the thing that we want to avoid the most. But just in terms of position and shape, that's the overlay. So we talked about this in the past. The one thing that we're very keen on is this horizontal banding. How to maintain that horizontal continuity of the bridge. That's the one thing that makes it a bridge and not 3 bridges. And I will dwell on this a little bit, but what primarily allows that and has changed is that we are effectively lowering the top of this bascule chamber. So the thing that appears to be concrete is below a continuous line of weathering steel. Previously, we were relying on only the edge. Now we're relying on the whole superstructure, deck superstructure, to make that horizontal continuity. Transparency is another thing that we've been talking about a lot, and we want to maintain that. So we're not interested in the concrete block. You strip that away, you still have quite a lot of structure, but you have a great deal of transparency. And I think of this as a Portland typology in terms of the bridges you can see in the background. The revelation of structure and mechanics is a thing on the Willamette. But if we leave it like that, then you're going to get security issues. You're going to get weather and security access that we don't want. So we have to prevent that with a cladding, which is what's happening in this case. So I'll talk about that cladding in another slide. Noticing here also the omission of one of those operator houses, and also the reciprocal buildings on the other side for access and egress to this chamber have also gone. So the loss, if one thinks of it that way, the symmetry on this view is compromised, but the gain is that suddenly you get more public space in lieu of that. So that's a gain, I think. So it's a different thing. Visually, I think it's a different thing. But I think it's a more transparent thing. And I think if one ignores what we know about the past, that it holds true into the future. Well, I talked about that transparency, and I earlier talked about the view from waterfront. You can see that the transparency is on four sides of the new element, not on two sides, as it was on the previous iteration. So material contrast, everything above this datum, weathering steel, everything beneath it. I mean, we haven't quite bottomed this out yet, but these are effectively louvers. They are louvers up here and they're louvers down here. We're talking about aluminum, which gives me the opportunity to use the British term aluminium, as fins. Again, I'll come back to that, but the idea really is that these are just a visual screen, and then that needs to be backed with a form of mesh for preventing bird and other forms of nefarious ingress. This is pretty standard stuff. But I talked about this before, that so suddenly, in the Saturday market or Sunday to Friday situation, you're now looking into and through that bascule chamber, whereas previously you were not. And I think that's one of the kind of chief advantages of this change out. I think the material contrast here is something of kind of interest as well. So you can see the difference in previously using the deck edge, the thin deck edge, as the point of continuum, the ribbon on the edge. Now, I mean, it's rather blunter, but it's more, it's driving home that continuity by engaging the whole depth. And that is entirely to do with revising the datum, which previously the bascule chamber facade went straight up to the deck. Here it stops short and creates a huge shadow gap, and a one-story high shadow gap between the mechanism and the deck level. View from Morrison. I mean, there are things I like, and there are things that I might regret. I mean, there's something less fluid about the public realm, but that kind of fantasy bird's eye view perhaps is not the reality for the user on the everyday. So just to rehearse everybody's favourite subject about the nature of this situation here. So remember, this is one of four. All the other three are public. This one is private. It's not public-private, it's private-private. So in effect, what happens is that the exterior of that zone belongs to the operator on this side. I think that's not really a problem from a public perspective, actually, because over here on the north side, one takes in the views of the Old Town Sign and Steel Bridge and all those good things, and you've got a kind of 50-50 split of public and private either side of the channel. So the vehicular access is still maintained with this micro car. There's no garage. He's just putting it into a private space. It's gated. There's no danger. The safety case is better. It's just drive in, drive out, no reversing. And what was previously a building or a cover by the stair is now open. So there's a private aspect to this, which is the stair down to the equivalent on that side of this level. This white arrow is suggesting that currently I think we may have it the wrong way around, because I think pretty much every visitor and every resident wants to stand in this corner and have their photograph taken in front of the old sign. There's a reason it's this side, and I don't know whether it's going to be visible. It's because the bascule or the trunnion, rather, sorry, is in this location, and I want the public to be able to see the trunnion because it's an interesting bit of moving kit, and if you want to see if you want to understand what a moving bridge is, you need to see the kit that makes it move. So I didn't want to put the stair in front of it, but we still have a little time to put that out. So again, as ever, there's no architecture in this. This is a placeholder, but we will be architecting this presently. There's only one of them, so I think even with the financial issues, one could afford to make a decent building here. And you can see that there's a version of the edge fencing that gates that off in this situation. So private, I don't know whether you can see my cursor, private on bottom left, and the other three all public. A little fuzzy. So that material on there is speculated to be, what I would call a pavement light. I think you would call a vault light. You'll recognise them as glass blocks inset to concrete. It's a thing that we've used very often on bridges here on the left. And there's an opportunity, I'm sure that HLB will talk about it next time through, but the lighting, both from below to the illuminated surface and from daylight through to the spaces beneath, I think is a good opportunity. So let's take some questions on the moving bridge.
Yes, thank you, Keith. Okay, so a lot of you put your tents up, so thank you. I have Jackie, Patty, Patrick, Bob, Ian, and Aaron. All right, Jackie's first. Okay, Bob, you're no.
All right. So I just had a couple questions. Sorry. So moving from one bridge operator house to two, or from two to one, does that change the safety or view for the bridge operator in terms of keeping the bridge safe and pedestrian safety?
Well, I'm going to answer this, and then we'll see whether anybody from the county jumps in. I mean, I do a lot of moving bridges, and in other jurisdictions, there would be no operator houses, and it would be done remotely. So it's a question of resilience, and this whole project is about resilience, right? So if you get a failure, you can move from one to the other, or if you get a blockage, if you have a seismic event and there is some kind of residual damage or something on the bridge that prevents you from using one, you can use the other. But I think certainly there would probably be a remote capability as well. So you're probably marginal on the safety case, in my opinion. But I'm not the moving bridge engineer or the operational strategist.
Yeah, oh, there's feedback there. Oh, right. So one of the concerns that our operator group brought up with the original design with those two head houses on the north side was actually a visual obstruction issue. And so actually eliminating those north head houses created less of a barrier and obstruction for them. And so they are able to now really be able to see all of the surfaces of the bridge rather than, the potential that someone is in a place during operations that they wouldn't be able to see. So they, is a benefit to be able to remove the north side ones. And then I think, as Keith kind of mentioned, even though there's not an operator house on the east side, we can still operate the bridge from down underneath. So it doesn't restrict any ability for us to be able to operate anything. And it's not a safety concern because on the existing bridge and any new structure, we have a whole plethora of cameras that can allow folks to see all the different angles and what's going on the bridge. So we have lots of built-in redundancy for safety and visual aid.
Yeah, I was glad to see the north side houses removed because I work with operators and they were not happy. And they were like, from a safety perspective, they were like, they literally would have to come out of the houses and go around and make sure things were safe, which is obviously not safe and not efficient for lifting a bridge. The other question I had, that is the public space, is it fully outside of the lift zone? Because that was one of the other concerns on the other bridges, that there were places to sit that were in the lift zone, which were also a nightmare for the bridge operators. So.
Perhaps I can go backwards to, okay, so the joints are not on this, but yeah, the cheap answer is yes. But there's been some debate about whether we have a staggered or a straight joint. You recall previously that we had things called flower boxes, which were a kind of bit of chicanery on the joint, which may be what you were talking about. I don't think wholly any of this was inside of that. It was about this question of the relationship between a chamfer on the edge of the overlooks and where the joint was. But this rectilinear shape pulling these back in to be a rectangle pretty much cures that. So I don't. I've confused myself. I don't know whether I said yes, but maybe I mean no. There is no overlap.
So, okay, so I'm hearing from Keith that none of this public space would be in the lift zone. Is that right, Keith? And yes,
Correct.
I'm seeing a yes from Emily. So these public spaces would be stable while the bridge is opening. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, you're off the hook, Keith. Okay.
Well, for months of that, they were always stable.
They're always level, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah. You will not tilt backwards. Okay, Patty, and then Patrick.
Thank you. An ingenious and delightful feature of the earlier design was, thank you, was that the machine rooms would really appear as lanterns at night. They were glazed, and from any direction from the banks of the river, you would see these two lanterns. And that was, I thought, a wonderful feature. That goes away completely, and I think that's a terrible shame. Those vertical aluminium louvers will mean that one cannot see into the machine room unless you happen to be on the next bridge up, and you've got a sort of straight-on view. The louvers around the side of the sides of the piers, I'm not quite clear how those would work yet. But is there some way to do what you're doing without losing that aspect of the machine rooms as lanterns, illuminated lanterns? During the day, there's an element of transparency. You can see things moving. I mean, it just makes the whole thing so much more interesting instead of great big dumb spaces.
Well, there are. I'm not sure I agree that that has gone away, Paddy, because and I think you'll hear much more about this next time through with HLB. They're going through the process right now, but in terms of material coverage, there's much less of this than there was previously. So the view in and the view through is I mean, that's the nature, of course, of louvers. So sometimes they block and sometimes they reveal, depending on where you are standing. But in terms of illumination, putting light sources inside of those and shining them onto those louver surfaces will give you, perhaps it won't be a lantern, but it will certainly be a beacon, if I could put it that way. I think that there is no issue with that. And are there ways? Yes. What I'm showing you is one option of many that we looked at, but there are many more, because the thing about louvers is, of course, you can change the depth, the orientation, and so on. So you can tune or curate that visibility. And would we do that for 60%? Maybe, but would we do it for 100%? Definitely.
I would just ask that you don't lose the concept of lanterns in the middle of the river. It's such an extraordinary and distinguishing feature that it's one of the things that people will remember about this bridge. So please don't lose it.
Okay.
Great, thank you.
Noted.
Okay, Patrick, then Ian and Aaron.
Thanks, Keith, for the updated designs. I think I'm a little bit torn by seeing this new iteration. I think there's some things that I'm drawn to, and the earlier image we were shown standing on the west side looking in towards these piers, that improved a level of transparency was definitely drawing me in. I thought that was a significant improvement, but the change to the pier is also quite jarring to me in many ways. it's instead of being underneath the larger span, now it kind of sits as its own object underneath the bridge, and it's not currently a lovely thing at the moment. It's quite pointy and jarring and jagged. It feels like a foreboding element in the river that maybe rightfully so, they want to keep people away from, almost. So I feel like it felt more like as a part of a whole in the original design. It felt more a part of a unified design, and now it seems like it's on its own. They're on their own little things that our bridge happens to land on top of, in a sense. And I thought that a curiosity of why the louvers are running vertically, I think that's causing part of it, is you've got this large horizontal band and then these vertical narrow things underneath it. I wondered, especially since we're showing louvers for part of the connection between where that house is, the operator house, the louvers around that stairwell are running horizontally, and then we change to a vertical or a diagonal even orientation, it appears in some of these renderings. If a horizontal orientation, or if there's a way that we can make this feel more unified again, or a little bit more of a, I don't know, a crafted object instead of a cage surrounding the equipment.
Yeah. So I mean, obviously we looked at, as I said previously, lots of iterations of this. So what's driving it is what one of the enjoyable aspects of the previous version was the diagrid. The diagrid is not coming out very strongly on this image, but I think that it would have been a signature figure of it. So what happens here is that because this is not of our volition, it's a kind of inherited geometry of this thing, but the slope of the back face is required to allow the back of the lifting deck to swing down. And there is now no need to slope the interface for reasons of expedience, but also of planning what's in there. So the shape is inherited, but putting the vertical louvers on the inside and the outside faces, facing west and east, when you wrap those two faces around the north and the south, they overlap and you get this diagrid. So I think, I understand your concerns. I think it's a little kind of sharp as a geometry, but I think in detail that I think it will have some. I struggle for the right word. I want to say elegance, but I don't really mean that. I think it will have some attitude, that I think is quite enjoyable. And vertical louvers, just to finish out that point, vertical louvers, certainly from viewpoints like this, give you maximum visibility through. I mean, were I able, I'd probably have no cladding, but I'm not able. So maximum visibility and maximum lightness, I think, is part of the incentive on that. And the verticals do that more than the horizontals. Does that cover it?
Okay,
Yes, I think that addresses it. Thanks, Keith.
great. Okay, Ian and then Aaron.
I've got a couple things. First, the glass bricks in the public spaces on the piers, I think, will be delightful at night when the inside of the piers are lit. But in regards to the space next to the bridgekeeper's house being entirely private, I don't see the necessity of that just because they're going to park a mini car there a couple hours a day. And I say that because on the east side of the Hawthorne Bridge, there is a public space that fire trucks drive through routinely. So I don't see why that has to be made entirely private just for the parking purposes of a tiny car, because it will irritate people. I know I would want to get in there. And if I had a little bit more lead in my system when I was a child, I would find a way to do it. And one other thing that I notice, it would be really nice as a pedestrian to have some sort of shelter at those spaces, especially while you're waiting for a bridge lift. I know it's one of the reasons why when I cross the river, if it's raining, I always cross at the Burnside or the Morrison, because there are places for me to stop and get out of the rain for good chunks of the year. And just something to think about regarding that. So that's all I've got.
Great. Thanks, Ian. All right, Aaron. Or I guess, Keith, if you want to chime in. Sorry.
No, I think they're interesting and valid points. I mean, of course, the shelter runs counter to that idea of visibility, but there are always compromises.
Great. Okay, thanks. Aaron?
So I just, I think in this area, I'm pretty excited about the direction. I think I agree with some of the comments about the awkwardness of the louvers, though I do see, I mean, I see the intention of having that band of the bridge deck support all being continuous, which I assume is the horizontal. So maybe this is just a kind of refinement issue. Maybe that'll get better. But I think the thing I really wanted to just take a moment to focus on is the increase in the public spaces. I'm really happy to see that. I think that's dramatically improved over what it used to be. I think this is one, VE gets a bad rap, but I think this is one moment where the loss of the operator tower, or one of the operator towers, I think has made the bridge significantly better. Having 3 public spaces that seem more generous than what I recall them being previously look really nice. And yes, I agree with the comment about the car. I will probably die on that hill that I don't like seeing the tiny car in the big space. But while I still hate it, I actually like it a lot more for one particular reason. Oh, but before I say that, I have one concern that maybe I'd like Keith or someone to speak about. This is essentially a giant maintenance yard, and I wonder over time how you envision preventing it from accumulating old oil and spare tires and other, random bits and pieces from the operator house spilling out into this public and highly visible space. And the last thing I wanted to say is that as much as I hate it, what I love about it over the previous scheme is that it's so similar to all the public spaces. I think it opens up the possibility that a smarter and maybe more vocal generation down the line in the future will push harder against the existence of this space and take it back as a public space. And I like that there's the possibility that that will happen sometime in the future.
Great. Thanks, Aaron. Okay, so I heard a question, and maybe it's for the county, about concern about accumulation of kind of junk storing up in that private space from the operator house.
Yeah, so I think one of the things that we're really proud of as an organization is how diligent our maintenance crews are. Our bridges are routinely maintained, and we have a really, really skilled group of folks who are out there on a daily basis on all of our bridges, doing the maintenance that it takes to keep them clean and accessible and functioning. So, yep, there's definitely always the possibility that, these spaces will, kind of accumulate things. But we're confident that our maintenance team are going to be around to, be there to make sure those spaces are clean and tidy.
Great. And then Keith, you wanted to chime in?
Yeah, sorry for speaking over you just then. Just to add one issue in is that obviously the operator house is upstairs. It's that glass box on top of a solid box in certain terms, but the only thing that's in that solid box at deck level is a restroom and a staircase, and there is storage opportunities in there, of course, but it's a fire safety case, so things can go in there, but I didn't like the sound of old tires and oil cans. That sounds pretty dangerous, so they're not going in there.
Great. All right, Gabe has our last question for this section, and then we're ready to move on to the east span.
Just an opinion about the design. I love the openness of the louvers on the sides, but on the faces of the bridge, north-south, they do remind me of something that I see just way too much, and that's just fences everywhere, cages, really rigid. Is there a possibility of blending those two models, decreasing the concrete used on the east-west sides, but then keeping the original kind of camper design of the bulkhead? And to the same note, the campers on the top of the bridge really were blending the bridge together to take it from those 3 units to one fluid thing, kind of replicating the shapes of the inverted Y. And now we have a very kind of disjointed, so possibly campers just on the exterior sides of those kickouts to help blend and mimic what's going on underneath the bridge. And that's it.
Okay. Yeah, noted. And of course, in a value engineering scenario, I would agree with you. But the exercise to control the cost comes with architectural cost. So, as I said, some things I think are better, some things I think still need to be proved out. So I definitely hear you.
Yeah. Great, thank you, Gabe. Okay, so I think we're ready to head on to the east side, and just confirming, we don't have any public comments, so we're just gonna kind of use that time. So Keith, you've still got about another 15 minutes or so.
Okay, well, in actual fact, the east is, well, I would struggle to take 15 minutes in this case because the changes are very few. So the tower has shifted west. I can't give you a dimension for that because I don't know it, but not so as you'd notice, I think, would be the chief takeaway on that. And because it's moved, that gives you a little bit of change on the cable array. And there is a little bit of tower shaping change. And, I don't want to bite the hand that feeds me, but I would say that in terms of the value engineering decisions, this is the one that I dislike, which is the removal of this central, on the left-hand side, the removal of the central rebate that runs up the top shaft. So that's just a flat surface. Pretty much. So you can see that with the deck. Okay, but that may be immaterial to everybody but the architects in the house, I think. I just think it needs that articulation because now it looks like one thing as opposed to two things leaning together. That's my concern. But before and after, pretty much everyone else is going to be driving down the same bridge and not recognising any change. It's still chamfered on the side, only a little bit less. So we've arrived. How did I do with my 15 minutes?
You did fabulous. That was the best 15 minutes ever. Okay, so I see Aaron and Patty have questions.
In my opinion, I think there are certain things in this project that should be non-negotiable, like pedestrian access to the waterfront on the west side. I think on a big urban scale. And I think also one of the things that really intrigued me about this particular scheme is the idea of these kind of two things coming together. And so, you know, I can't imagine that well, I would love to know how much is actually being saved with the elimination of this detail. I think this detail is really central to what makes this project unique and special, and I think it really changes the reading in a significant way when it becomes a single object. I know it has the little notch on the top, but I feel like we're really sacrificing something important there, and I would love to know specifically, like, how much are we saving, and is that really worth it in the long run?
I'm not sure if Megan wants to answer that, or Keith. Megan, you want to?
Yeah, no, I just really appreciate that feedback. I don't have the dollar figure off the top of my head, but I think that was one of our goals as coming to this group, is just kind of hearing a reaction to these changes, and so appreciate that feedback.
But that might be something we can look at and bring back to you. Okay, Patty.
Thank you. Really, I agree absolutely with what Aaron said. You won't know this, but Keith will know. On the M25, there are many examples of the crude version with no slot, and they look clunky. They just look crude. And I think what the reveal in there does is it lightens the structure. It makes, there's something wrong about having a huge block of concrete overhead, and by splitting it somehow, it makes it acceptable. Obviously, the opportunity for lighting in that groove is enormous. So at nighttime, it will give it a very distinctive look. So I think unless the savings are absolutely astronomical, this is not value engineering. This is cost cutting at the cost of the design, and that's never a good principle. So I would say, please put the slot back. And I would also like to echo what Aaron said about pedestrian access. That is not an optional extra. It is an essential feature. So please note that too. Thank you.
Great. All right. Bob?
I could be brief. Check, 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 and check. But I'm going to get on the same hill with Aaron and Diane. I'm going to start from a different side of the hill. We'll get to the same spot up top. The tower element, as you well remember, all of us, I mean, that was a big deal. We really wrestled with that. We were trying to figure out cost and value benefit, and it became clear to the community that as a piece of urban architecture for the bridge for this project, it's one of the singular events that is so important to it as a piece of architecture. So we're giving you another round of ammo, Keith, with our support that this is something we need to fight for and figure out a way that it doesn't turn into this lump of crete and we lose that elegance, that very important piece of the bridge. This is something that's singular to the city of Portland and something that we have to figure out a way with engineering and architecture and lighting to make that still sing.
Great. Thanks, Bob. Anybody else? Okay. Well, Keith, I'm not sure if you're going to stay up or go back to bed, but thank you for walking us through this. So, yeah. Thank you. Okay, well, this brings us to the last part of our, oh, you want me? This brings us to the last part of our meeting. And so we really just wanted to reinforce that our next meeting is Thursday, November 20th. Again, HLB will be here to walk us through the lighting updates and the concepts as they relate to this new design. And we really do want to have that roundtable discussion about, as we kind of wrap up this phase of the project, what are some really important things that you all are already starting to call out that you really want to make sure are in that plan when the project gets picked up again in the future, right? How do we want to reduce the rework? How do we want to embody all of the work and thoughts that you all have brought to the table and make sure that moves forward? Obviously, we have the notes and the recordings and all of that, but we really want to help synthesize that for the conversation moving forward. And we do want to have a little party and say thank you to you all and eat some cake. And we know because Twin is planning it, all the food, and she always does, and she does a great job. So I think we will have some good cake for that party. And then we do want to say that we are tentatively scheduled for the centennial celebration for the bridge. On June 6th. We may reach out to some of you because we do want this to be a community celebration and connect with the communities on both sides of the bridge, different partners, and really, make it something to celebrate since it's 100 years, and we want to have some party, and we will have more cake, and so, it's all about the cake. So, Megan, did I miss anything?
Just a reminder, this is our last meeting for now. Just
the November one.
The November one. Yeah, sorry. Just wanted to make sure everyone remembered that.
Yeah. Yes, Susan. I saw you raised your name 10.
Yes, I'd just like to say briefly that some of us have been on this committee before it was design committee, in terms of why were we tearing down a perfectly good bridge that was functioning, that had 5 lanes, that has pedestrian access to the Esplanade as well as down to First Avenue. Why were we doing this? And we were doing this because of the prospect of having this devastating earthquake that would level all the bridges except for the Tillicum and now the Selwood, but the approaches to the Tillicum. So while we're talking about this, and we're very aware that there could be a very serious delay and a potentially no build could take place here, I would hope that I would urge the county to start thinking proactively about whether you're assembling pontoons, whether you're thinking about reinforcing the Tillicum supports, whether you're figuring out a way to get to the Selwood Bridge or not, that you have put some energy and effort into figuring out a contingency plan should the earthquake take place before this thing is ever built. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Susan. Okay. Oh, Ian, yeah.
It's just one thing, I think I know the answer to this, but I want to make sure that I know the answer to this. This is funded through design phase. There will be a design for the bridge regardless of how long it takes to get that built. Or are we just engaged in some sort of pantomime right now? What's going on?
Just to clarify, we are taking the design to 60%, which is honestly largely where all the large design decisions have been made and a lot of the major constructability means and methods have been identified. Anything beyond that is really about just detailing. So I would say that what you see here is going to be captured in the 60%, and this is the design of the new bridge that we would then hand over to the next group of people who will pick up this project and move it forward.
Yeah.
Does that answer?
Yeah. Okay, any last thoughts before we break? And then we will see you in November on the 20th. Okay, thank you all again, and we'll see you in a month. All right, take care.